If you're looking to simplify your home entertainment life and reduce the number of remote controls you use, the Sofa Baton X1 Universal Remote is a great option. It's the new king of universal remote controls for its price range. If you're not familiar with universal remote controls, the short answer is that they are a single device that can replace the need to use multiple remote controls for the myriad of different devices in your average home. Instead of having to reach for a different remote for your TV and then another remote for your cable box, you can simply program a single universal remote to do all the same functions. There are multiple brands of universal remotes on the market which largely do the same thing but to varying degrees. However, the main criteria for a great universal remote boils down to three things. The first is that the remote must work with hundreds if not thousands of different brands and models of TVs, set-top boxes and AV receivers. Plus, there may be even more ancillary devices that the average person uses that need to be included. The second criteria is that the remote needs to be easy to program. Compatibility without a good user experience is just frustrating when you're trying to set up a universal control. The third criteria is ergonomics, not only how it feels in your hand, but how easy it is to reach the main buttons and also whether the button layout makes sense for your most used functions. As you'll see from this video, the Sofa Baton X1 delivers against all three, albeit with some room for improvements. In the box is the remote itself. Upon handling the device, the first thing you notice is the nice weight and size. I have an average size hand and find the remote sits nicely in my palm. The remote also features a nice heft to it, thanks to the built-in 1050 mAh battery. The dimensions also make this a nice unit to handle. It's wide enough that it's easy to hold, but thin enough so that you can reach all the buttons on your remote with your thumb. The plastic housing is also nice and tactile with rounded edges that is pleasing to handle too. I'm also a fan of the screen, which is bright and integrated seamlessly into the body of the remote. The buttons are a mix of different materials. The main buttons are a soft plastic or rubber which are solid and satisfyingly clicky. The device controls are navigated using the ball, which is rubber, with a raised textured finish. The ball is also clickable for accessing the menu system. Finally, the large disc is finished in a polished plastic that serves as your main navigation control on your connected devices. The middle button serves as the Enter or OK button. The different textures and positions of the buttons have been well thought out and make navigating around the remote by touch alone very easy, which is important for usability. Also included in the box is the main infrared hub, charging brick, two accompanying USB-A to USB-C charging cables, and two IR extenders, which I talk about more later. Setting up the app is very straightforward and helped by the fact you can use your Google account to log in. However, you can also create non-Google credentials if you so desire. The app is split into three main sections. The first is where you add and manage all your home entertainment devices. The second section is where you create activities, where you can combine devices to be switched on and off or change inputs with a single button press, rather than having to press multiple buttons. The final section is where your account details and advanced settings are located. Once installed and logged into your account, you will want to add devices. Sofa Baton's marketing says it supports over 6,000 different tech brands, with more than 60,000 different models of devices. The process to start adding your devices is to tap on the plus sign on the Devices section. You'll then be presented with three options depending on the functionality of your device. For instance, most devices use infrared emitters and receivers, so tapping on infrared will then enable you to search for brands and models that use IR to control their devices. There are two ways to connect your infrared devices in the submenu. The most convenient method is to search using the database. You will then need to ensure that you have the model number of your own device to guarantee successful connection. The other way to connect an infrared device is to directly teach the Sofa Baton app. To do this, you simply point the remote to the top of the Sofa Baton hub and follow the app instructions. This is a great process should your device not be included in Sofa Baton's database. The second section is for devices that use Bluetooth to communicate. One example in my home is that my Google TV uses Bluetooth instead of IR for controlling its functions. As a side note, Google TV isn't listed in Sofa Baton's database, so you'll want to select the Chromecast option instead, which has some limitations but nothing that really interferes with your experience. The final section is for Wi-Fi controlled devices. Examples of Wi-Fi controlled devices include Roku, Philips Hue lights and Sonos speakers. I personally connected my Philips Hue hub, which I talk about more later in this video. As mentioned, activities are a way to group together a set of functions from multiple devices into a single button press on the X1 remote. For instance, if your devices are compatible, using the Sofa Baton example, you can extend your projector screen, switch on your projector and Blu-ray player, and then switch inputs with a single command. My home has slightly fewer requirements. I use a Control 4 system to pipe my audio into my surround sound system in the family room. However, for my TV and movie viewing, I use a combination of a Sony Bravia TV, a Google TV 4K, and a Denon receiver for volume control. Using the app, I've created an activity that switches all three on. Then, the volume buttons on the X1 remote are used to control the Denon receiver, and then the main navigation buttons on the remote control for the Google TV. Another activity I've set up is that my wife likes to play her Nintendo Switch, which does require one more step to switch the input to HDMI 1. Here, I started by tapping Add Activity, and then I chose the devices that would be required to play the Nintendo Switch, the TV and the AV receiver. Then I needed to change the startup functions to include switching the input to HDMI 1 as part of the starting activity. The hardest bit of the process was choosing the correct command from the list. Sofa Baton does a great job of downloading all the possible functions for a given device. However, matching the correct function with the same function on the original remote takes a process of elimination. I spent some time testing each kind of input one by one. Luckily, the app enables you to trigger each listed function and review the result in real time before committing to an assignment. For example, the key map downloaded for my Sony Bravia TV includes 2 HDMI instructions, so identifying the correct one takes a little bit more time. Given the large database and the fact the X1 supports up to 50 devices and 50 different activities means you should be able to create a large number of different combinations for any foreseeable tech and entertainment situation in your home. A nice additional customization feature is the ability to reassign buttons from the default key maps transposed onto the X1 remote to other functions. For instance, you can rearrange the buttons that are used regularly to be more conveniently placed for your hand, and you can create your own shortcuts for functions. I actually found this function especially useful when using my Google TV. The Chromecast key map in the database is the closest you can get to the same functions as a Google TV. It was missing some functions I use regularly, such as navigating to the home page. After some tweaks, I now have that assigned to my menu button. What's more, the Sofa Baton is so flexible you can assign different functions to the same button, but differentiating the result with either a tap or a long press. For example, a tap could navigate back one screen on my Google TV. However, a long press can jump all the way back to the Google TV main homepage. Another example with my Philips Hue lights is that I can assign my lamp to the red button. A tap will switch the lamp on, a long press will switch the lamp off. These are just two simple examples, but you can explore far more complex operations if you want to. As part of setting up the X1, you will need to find the optimal placement for the hub IR blaster to work. The X1 remote communicates with the hub, and it's the hub that communicates with your devices via infrared, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. To that end, Sofa Baton recommends placing the hub inside any closed entertainment cabinets that you may have where doors may block the signal. If your entertainment cabinet doesn't have doors, you have more options to place the unit around your living space. The hub has enough power to bounce off the walls and surfaces to reach your TV and other devices. For my own setup, I tested whether the hub could get past the recessed entertainment cabinet and penetrate the mesh covers of the doors hiding my receiver. I had mixed success, and only after depressing the volume button for a while did the IR signal reach the unit. So I opted to move the hub inside the cabinet instead. However, that created its own issues where the blaster couldn't reach the TV. Thankfully, this is where the 2 sets of IR extenders included with the X1 come in handy. These little cables plug into the back of the hub and enable you to run a tiny IR emitter to another location nearer the device you're trying to control. In my case, I snaked the cable between the cabinet doors and positioned it just underneath the TV to resolve the issue. Sofa Baton doesn't support Control 4 as mentioned earlier, but it wasn't really a deal breaker for me personally. The only other problem I had was that while the Sofa Baton supports Philips Hue to control your smart lights, I wasn't able to see all of my dozens of smart lights listed on the remote. I reached out to Sofa Baton to help troubleshoot this. At this point, it's worth mentioning the X1 does include some cool additional features. The first one I like is the fact that the buttons are backlit, which is ideal at nighttime in a darkened room. You can easily see the buttons you want to use. My favourite unique feature is that the X1 has a Find My Remote function. Using the app, you can make the remote sound an alarm, which is ideal when your remote inevitably goes missing. While I haven't tested the X1 beyond the 2 weeks so far, Sofa Baton says the integrated battery will last up to 60 days once fully charged. Charge time is approximately 3 hours from empty. If I had to nitpick about anything else about the X1, it's that I'd love to see some further design polish and the way the information is displayed on the LCD screen. The icons and menus could be improved to be more aesthetically pleasing. However, I'm fairly sure these are software based and can be updated with future software updates. The final cool feature that is going to be very handy for some owners is that the X1 is compatible with Google Assistant. Like many other brands of compatible smart devices, it just requires using Google Home to connect the Sofa Baton account with your Google account. It's also compatible with Amazon Alexa, but because my home runs mainly on Google compatible devices, I was focused on Google Assistant for this video. Once set up, Sofa Baton enables voice control for any activities you've created in the app using the name you've attributed to the activity. Google, start Watch TV. For instance, once I created the Watch TV activity, I can simply ask Google Assistant to turn on Watch TV, and it will turn on all the devices and switch the inputs as defined in the app. Overall, I'm really impressed with the X1, and I can honestly say that it's the natural successor to the previous king of universal remotes, the Logitech Harmony. I had a long history of using Harmony products with my family, but since Logitech has exited the market, the Sofa Baton X1 picks up the mantle effortlessly. It provides the same level of features that tech enthusiasts have come to expect. Sofa Baton has made a remote that is not only easy to program with the most common home entertainment devices, but also a piece of hardware that is nice to handle and use. The X1 delivers against my basic requirements to control my home entertainment devices, but it also has the potential to create much more sophisticated operations. I'm able to control my lights, integrate into my Google Home, and it's also going to have the facilities to add more tech I buy in the future. The only detraction is that it's a shame that my Control 4 system isn't compatible, but again, it's not really a big deal for me personally. Also, I'd love to see more refinements for the information displayed on the X1 remote's LCD screen. More design polish in the way the information is displayed would be nice, but it's not going to change how I use the remote. I definitely recommend picking up the Sofa Baton X1 if you're in the market for a universal remote and want a remote that you can do more with than other options on the market. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more videos on the connected home and personal technology.